Coming up on LevinTV, another manufactured pseudo-news story aimed to damage President Trump.
I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it.
Everybody in the country should be totally appalled by what the president said last night.
It all starts now.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, LevinTV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is LevinTV on BlazeTV.com. Let's look at the monitor just for a minute, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, wait a minute. Is that the New York Times? I think it is the New York Times. Boy, they must be grinding their teeth over here. This 3 weeks in a row, thanks to you. #1 nonfiction book in America, hardcover, that's print, and ebook. And look at that, we beat this guy, Michael Wolff, Siege, that phony who's written his second phony book. But if you'll scroll down, you'll see we've beaten a number of people, actually. Let's see, we beat the Mueller report, we beat David McCullough, among the favorite of the media, Howard Stern, sorry, no lesbians in my book, Michelle Obama, oh my goodness, beat all kinds of people. I just want to thank you folks for doing this, because this has been a call to the Thomas Paines out there. This is our pamphlet, I hope you'll agree. This is what we're trying to inform our fellow Americans all about, family, friends, neighbors, co-workers. It's crucially important, as you're about to see. Don't forget to get your copy for Father's Day. Time's running out. Father's Day is Sunday. Amazon.com, any major book retailer, any major warehouse, they're all there. They're all supposed to be there. But you'll want to get it as quickly as you can, because as I say, Sunday's coming, you want to have it in hand. And I bet you, if your father, husband, or your son or your grandfather's a great patriot, I think they're going to really appreciate Unfreedom of the Press. Those of you who've read it know exactly what I'm talking about. Check out those 5-star reviews on Amazon. I didn't write a single one of them. And by the way, check out the 1-star reviews too. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Anyway, let's get started. We have another manufactured issue. George Stephanopoulos interviews the President of the United States and asks him, well, let's see what they ask him. Go ahead.
In June of 2016, just months before the election, Don Jr. received an email from a business associate promising dirt on Hillary Clinton from the Russian government. Don Jr.'s response, if it's what you say, I love it. The conversation led to a meeting in Trump Tower that included the president's son, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and a Russian lawyer. Don Jr. insists nothing came of it. And Special Counsel Robert Mueller concluded there was not enough evidence to charge a conspiracy between the Trump campaign.
So in other words, nothing happened. This is George Stephanopoulos of the Clinton crime family, who's now a bigwig at ABC News. That's how it works. So nothing was there, nothing happened. It's been investigated 1,000 different ways. Go ahead.
And Russia.
And then the report comes out, and they didn't even say, they hardly even talked about it.
Should he have gone to the FBI when he got that email?
Okay, let's put yourself in a position, you're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think.
Coming from Russia, you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. You throw somebody out of your office. You do whatever
Al
you do.
Gore got a stolen briefing book. He called the FBI.
Well, that's different. A stolen briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director says that's what should happen.
The FBI director is wrong.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI.
You know, this is amazing. First of all, none of this has happened. You understand that, right? So this is a completely manufactured news story, and it's reverberating throughout the Democrat Party media today, and people are responding to it. It's like the other week, the word nasty was the big issue. It's just preposterous. But let me show you why the media in this country are a joke. That was a ridiculous question. A ridiculous question. The question that you would want to ask, and which should go to Pelosi, not the president who was a victim of this scam, but Pelosi. The Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC paid for a former British spy to collaborate with Kremlin apparatchiks and manufactured dirt on Donald Trump, which was then used, given to the FBI by law enforcement against the president or would-be president of the United States, the candidate. What do you think about that, Nancy Pelosi? Would you do that? That's the question, because the perpetrators are there. The President of the United States did none of this. He did none of this. So now the country, through the media, is debating, well, did you hear what he said he would do? But he didn't do it. And by the way, what's wrong if he did do it? Let me give you some history. Again, this is something you won't hear from the media. 1996, Communist China, the military arm of Communist China, they put, in the Bill Clinton re-election campaign, they poured millions of dollars into that campaign. Maybe you remember the names, Johnny Chung and so forth, the Riyadi group. They poured millions of dollars into the DNC to affect that race. And Bill Clinton won his re-election. They never even appointed a special counsel to investigate that. Only the LA Times seemed to take an interest in it. Most of the rest of the media could care less. And that story died on the vine. There's millions of dollars that was taken by the campaign and taken by the DNC, where the vast majority of the media didn't care. Let me give you another one, 1987. This is all in unfreedom of the press, by the way, because this all deals with the same thing. Then Democrat Speaker Jim Wright. He goes down and he meets with a bunch of individuals in Nicaragua, including Daniel Ortega, a communist. And he's a communist there now, and he rules with an iron fist. He's a dictator. And the Reagan administration said, you're undermining our policies vis-a-vis Nicaragua and Ortega. And what did Wright say? He said, I'm Speaker of the House, separate branch of government. I'll do whatever the hell I want to do. How about 2007, 20 years later, another Democrat Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. She actually met with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, a genocidal maniac. Again, the Bush administration, Bush 43, said, please don't do this. You're going to undermine our policies vis-a-vis Syria and Assad. Again, well, we're our own branch of government. If I choose to meet with them, I'll meet with them. The greatest case, 1983, Ted Kennedy uses a surrogate, John Tunney, former senator, to make contact with the head of the KGB. And Kennedy, in so many words, says, we're very concerned about Reagan. We're concerned about his treatment of the Soviet Union. We don't want war. We'd like to see him defeated. And I have advice to give on how to defeat him. And he provides some advice. It goes to the head of the Kremlin, and then it goes to the head of the Soviet Union. 1983. That information came out in 1992, long before Ted Kennedy would pass away. Do you know how many mainstream so-called media outlets were interested? None. None. You know how many investigations were conducted in violation of the Logan Act? None. You know how many House and Senate oversight investigations there were? None. They talk about interference in an election. There's the lion of the Senate. Nobody gave a damn. Today, John Kerry, former presidential candidate, Democrat Party, former Secretary of State, is going behind the current Secretary of State, giving advice to the Iranian regime about how to deal with the American administration, President of the United States. What about that? Well, you know, Mark, that's not the same as getting information from a foreign government. The answer is it would depend on what the information is. Let's say a foreign government gives you information that is quite concerning about the opponent in the campaign. The president didn't say he wouldn't give it to the FBI. Didn't he say give it to both? Isn't that what he said, Doc? He said he'd give it to both. Doc's busy. He said he'd give it to both, right? He said, well, you might do both. You might do both. Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? But in the case of Hillary Clinton, the DNC and the Democrats, they weren't receiving information from the Kremlin. They went to the Kremlin and they manufactured information with the Kremlin, took that information, then gave it to the FBI 10 different ways, for the purpose of criminalizing and using their opposition research to take out candidate Trump and then eventually President Trump. Far worse. And yet George Stephanopoulos cannot find the time or the interest to go up to a Nancy Pelosi or to any leading Democrat and to ask them the real question. If you were running for president, let's say it's the Nancy Pelosi campaign, would you allow money to be used from your campaign and the DNC to hire a group that then hires a former British spy to collude with the Russians, the Kremlin, in order to manufacture dirt against your opponent and then use it with the FBI in order to try and take out your opponent? That would be a real question, not a hypothetical to the President of the United States like, if you had information from a foreign country about your opposition, your opponent in a campaign, would you use it? But he didn't. The first scenario actually happened. So this is what I mean when I talk about this pseudo news. This is what I mean when I talk about the Democratic Party press. This is what I mean about them projecting their reality, which is an unreality, under our world, under our facts, under our system. And it's a problem, and it just played out again. And so, true to form, Nancy Pelosi's ready to strike. And here's what she said in response. Go ahead.
Everybody in the country should be totally
By the way,
appalled.
is she a taxi driver? What's going on here? I'm just curious. Go ahead.
By what the president said last night. Should be totally appalled. But he has a habit of making appalling statements. This one...
Remember, this is the one in 2007 who met with Assad, undermining Bush 43 in their effort to basically take Assad and put him in a box. She reached out to Assad. She met with Assad. Don't forget who you're dealing with here. Go ahead.
So totally unethical that he doesn't even realize it.
What's
However,
unethical? He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. What's so unethical? Go ahead.
what we want to do is have a
What is it, sign language? I don't know. What is she, a safety out there moving the traffic? It's really quite weird. Go.
Approach to the path that we are on, and this will be included in that. But not anyone
What will be included in that? That the president answered a hypothetical? She doesn't like the answer, so it's going to be included in your pre-impeachment investigation? What the hell is going on here? This is the news. She's rogue, absolutely rogue. Go.
You is going to trigger, oh, now we'll go do this, because it's about investigating, it's about litigating, it's about getting the truth to hold
the truth
everyone.
To what? He told you exactly what he said. Well, we want to get to the truth. We really, the truth. We want to get you to do whatever we can, and it's unethical. Be part of our, investigation as we work our way through this. Go.
Unaccountable, and no one is above the law.
Well, just shut up, you idiot. She's a humiliating embarrassment. She really is. And nobody's above the law. Well, she was above the law, right? When she met with Assad in 2007, Kennedy was above the law in 1983 when he sent his messages and his surrogate over to the Kremlin. I would say the Clintons are always above the law, particularly when it comes to the Espionage Act and emails, and when it came to 1996 and all that Chinese military money pouring into their campaign in the DNC. Jim Wright, another Democrat speaker, he was above the law in 1987. Apparently these mobsters who run these various committees in the House of Representatives, they're above the law. They can't even wait for courts to decide whether their subpoenas are constitutional without trying to hold people in contempt. They're handing out contempt like you hand out lollipops. So we don't need lectures about the Constitution from her, that's for sure. And what has she done? What have they done? But for the president, our military wouldn't be built up. But for the president, there'd be no effort to secure the border. I mean, what has she done? But for the president, the economy would be dead because we continue with massive regulations and confiscatory taxes. This is all they do. It's all a game. The media, the Democrats, the media. George Stephanopoulos is in there. How is it that George Stephanopoulos has a prime position as a journalist at ABC News? There he is questioning a Republican president when he used to work for a Democrat president. There's something terribly wrong about that, isn't there? Yes, is the answer to that. So here we have an affirmative effort by the Democrats at the DNC, the Hillary Clinton campaign, to use the Russians to manufacture a dossier against the sitting president. And the hypothetical question to this president receives more outrage from these same people than the fact of what took place. Think about that. That's it.